Chapter 4. Andrew arrived at the scene half an hour later, the chill of the early morning air biting through his jacket. Police lights flickered against the facades of the surrounding buildings, painting the night in rhythmic bursts of red and blue. "Where is it?" Andrew asked as soon as he shut the car door, the cool metal grounding him for a fleeting moment. Matthew, standing a few feet away, was engaged in conversation with a uniformed officer. His face was partially obscured by the shadow of his cap, but his voice was clear. "Fourth floor. Have you seen it yet?" Number I wanted to speak to the woman who called it in first. Andrew rubbed his temples. "So, you're sure it's our guy?" Matthew exhaled, shifting slightly. "The first officer on the scene had to break the door down, says the place is a disaster." Andrew blew out a slow breath. "Same M.O." Matthew hesitated before lowering his voice. "And that's not all. The neighbour who called it in says she saw someone escape through the window." Andrew frowned. "It's the fourth floor." "I know. Maybe that old lady was right after all." "And where exactly was this neighbour?" Matthew pointed across the street. "She saw it from over there, fourth floor. Her window faces directly onto ours. She originally called it in as a suicide as she thought someone jumped. When the first officer didn't find a body, he checked the apartment, and when no one answered, he forced the door open and found the place trashed." Andrew's gaze moved to the narrow gap between the buildings. The distance wasn't impossible for a line of sight, but someone escaping from that height? That was another story. "Let's talk to the witness then," he said, turning toward the building. Matthew hesitated. "Actually, she lives in the same building as the victim, same floor." Andrew's eyes narrowed. "Didn't you just say—" "She was in a business meeting," Matthew said with a smirk. Andrew scoffed. "A business meeting at 3 in the morning?" They entered the building, the elevator predictably out of order. Forced to take the stairs, they moved past graffiti-covered walls, some of which bore strange, almost familiar symbols. Scrawled phrases caught Andrew's eye, disturbing echoes of past reports. "Came out the window. Door was locked when I arrived. Had to break it down. The house was devastated, but nothing seemed to be missing. The victim resisted with superhuman force." Matthew reached a door on the left. "You go ahead. I want to see the apartment first," Andrew said. He hesitated for a moment, then stepped toward the broken entrance, its splintered wood a silent testament to the force used against it. He pressed his palm to the doorframe, feeling the rough edges where it had been torn from its hinges. Inside, the darkness swallowed the details until his eyes adjusted. Glass shards reflected the dim glow of distant streetlights. The air carried a scent of something disturbed, something old. The apartment was a war zone. Every piece of furniture overturned, every painting slashed from its frame. He moved carefully, stepping over the remnants of what had once been someone's life. At the far end of the living room, a door hung ajar. A faint noise, a shift in the air. His hand tightened on his weapon. His pulse quickened as he pressed his back against the wall, nudging the door open with his foot. It creaked and he swore internally. Then, abandoning subtlety, he shoved it open fully. For a fraction of a second, movement caught his eye, a dark figure at the window. Then, as if dissolving into the night, it was gone. Andrew lunged forward, but the layout of the room betrayed him. His knee struck an unseen armchair, sending him stumbling. He recovered fast and reached to the window, his breath misting against the cold night air as he peered down, a long way down. No balcony, no fire escape. He scanned the pavement below. Nothing. No body. His gaze lifted. Maybe they had climbed up, but there was nothing above either. And yet he had seen someone, a figure, dark and undeniable. Behind him, Matthew's voice cut through the tension. "Did you see something?" Andrew, still gripping his gun, spun instinctively, heart hammering, finger tight on the trigger before recognition dawned. "Hey, wait! It's me!" Matthew threw his hands up. Andrew exhaled, lowering his weapon. "I thought I saw someone." "Someone you need to shoot?" Andrew turned back to the window. I saw someone jump, I'm sure of it. But it's impossible to just walk away from this height. Matthew followed his gaze. Then maybe we're not dealing with someone ordinary. He said nothing, but deep down, he had a feeling Matthew was right. Something about this case wasn't just strange. It was impossible. Andrew ran a hand through his dishevelled hair, exhaling slowly as he stared out the shattered window. The city beyond was indifferent, untouched by the chaos inside the apartment. What did the neighbours say they saw? He asked, his voice low, measured. Same thing. Just a figure jumping. No details. 2 other neighbours said they woke up around 2 a.m. because of loud noises. It lasted a few minutes, then silence. Andrew turned away from the broken view and nodded toward Matthew. Get someone to dust for prints. Maybe we'll get lucky this time. Matthew gave a terse nod and stepped away, his phone in hand. Andrew took a slow, deliberate walk through the remains of what had once been an orderly home. The devastation looked even worse under full light. Furniture was overturned, books and papers scattered, picture frames shattered on the hardwood floor. In the bedroom, the destruction reached another level. The door had been ripped clean off its hinges, lying in the middle of the bed like a discarded playing card. Something, had torn through this place with a force beyond anything natural. Nothing was untouched. Matthew reappeared at his side, holding a notebook and rubbing his temple. Another one that only eats out, he muttered. Andrew frowned. No kitchen. Not really, barely any dishes, no cooking utensils, but he does have a fridge. Andrew stepped over the wreckage toward the fridge, kicking aside broken shelves as he reached for the handle. He pulled the door open. Empty. Except for one thing. Matthew peered over his shoulder. What's that? Andrew followed his gaze to a single drop of dark red liquid on the glass shelf. It looked fresh. He swiped it with his finger, examining the colour, the viscosity. Then, without thinking, he brought it to his lips. Matthew made a sound of disgust. Please tell me you didn't just... Blood, Andrew murmured, his gaze locked onto the empty fridge as an uneasy feeling curled in his gut. Matthew sighed. We should send a sample to the lab, see if it's human. Andrew shut the fridge door and nodded. One more question to add to the list. Let's see if we can find anything useful. They combed through the wreckage, searching for anything that might offer a lead. But there was nothing. No fingerprints, no personal belongings, no ID. It was as if the victim had been erased from existence. In the office, loose papers covered the floor, scrawled with handwritten notes on philosophy, mythology, and religion. Andrew scooped up a handful, flipping through them. Maybe something here held a clue. Matthew crouched beside a toppled bookshelf, his fingers trailing over the spines of the scattered hardcovers. Where the hell did he get these? He lifted a leather-bound volume and frowned. Latin, Greek. I don't even know what language this one is. He set aside a book covered in strange symbols that seemed to pulse under the dim light. By the time they finished, dawn had broken. The city was waking, pale light creeping through the streets, stretching long shadows across the pavement. Andrew took a final sweep of the apartment, searching for anything at all, that might reveal the victim's identity. A photo, an ID, a single scrap of paper with a name, anything. Nothing. Matthew sighed, rolling his shoulders. Let's go. They descended the stairs in silence, stepping into the early morning bustle. The city continued, oblivious to the horrors hidden within its walls. Yet, Andrew felt an unsettling sense of isolation. It wasn't the first time, but this morning it settled heavier on his chest. More ominous. A strange unease crept over him, a whisper of something just out of reach. The hairs on the back of his neck prickled. His instincts screamed at him. Someone was watching. His gaze swept the street. A group of uniformed officers stood near a squad car, engaged in discussion. Matthew was speaking to a young officer. Then, across the road, something caught his eye. A black car. It was parked about 100 yards away, its windows tinted too dark to see through. But something about it, something instinctive, made his stomach tighten. The longer he looked, the more certain he was. Someone was inside, watching, waiting. Just as he took a step forward, Matthew grabbed his arm. "Hey, Andrew, I'm talking to you." Andrew blinked, the car shifting out of focus. "What?" "I asked if you're heading straight to the station. I need to check in with Miriam." Andrew glanced at the car again. Its engine rumbled to life. It pulled away. He hesitated. Then, shaking off the unease, he turned back to Matthew. "No, I'm going home first. I need a shower and a change of clothes." Matthew nodded. "Want a ride?" "I drove here." He climbed into his car, resting his hands on the steering wheel. Closing his eyes for a moment, he exhaled, trying to shake the gnawing feeling that clung to him. Then, with a twist of the key, the engine roared to life. He pulled into the street, leaving the scene behind. The first thing he did when he got home was step under the cold stream of water flowing from his shower. He stood there for a long moment, letting the icy droplets cascade down his back, washing away the exhaustion that clung to him like a second skin. The sharp sting of the cold sent a jolt through his muscles, forcing them to loosen, unraveling the tension coiled within him. The echoes of the day, the crime scenes, the long hours, the unanswered questions, faded into the background as he focused solely on the water pounding against his skin. For a few minutes, he allowed himself to forget about the case, to push aside the gnawing frustration and the sense of urgency that had been his shadow for weeks. The cold wasn't just a physical relief, it was a reset, a momentary reprieve from the weight pressing against his chest. When he finally stepped out, droplets trailing down his skin, he felt invigorated, the dark thoughts momentarily rinsed away, though he knew they would return before long. Wrapping himself in a towel, he walked to his bedroom, running a hand through his damp hair. The apartment was quiet, save for the distant hum of traffic filtering in through the window. He moved to his closet, pulling open the doors and staring at the row of black suits hanging neatly inside. His fingers hovered over the fabric, hesitating. Lily had insisted he wear them all the time. "You're a detective now. You need to dress like one." "Look at Matthew," she used to say whenever he resisted. A professional image, something to separate him from the chaos he waded through every day. But he had never quite embraced it the way she wanted him to. He smirked slightly, shaking his head as he reached for a pair of well-worn jeans and a black t-shirt, one of the few things he had fought to keep when Lily had tried to purge his wardrobe. It was a small, insignificant thing, but holding on to it had felt like reclaiming a part of himself. One of the small victories of divorce, he mused, pulling the shirt over his head and slipping into the jeans. Avoiding the living room, where case files and crime scene photos cluttered the coffee table, he grabbed his keys and headed straight out the door. He needed a break from the case, even if just for an hour. A short escape before the darkness crept back in. As he drove, he turned on the radio, hoping for music, something light, something that would distract him. Instead, a familiar reporter's voice filled the car, her tone low and dramatic. "Another abduction took place last night, the third this week. The police still has no leads." Andrew clenched his jaw, his fingers tightening around the steering wheel. How the hell did she always find out so fast? She had been shadowing them from the beginning, despite repeated warnings, to wait for official statements. More than likely, someone inside the department was feeding her information. That had to stop. If she revealed the wrong detail to the public, she could jeopardize everything. His mother's house came into view faster than expected. As usual, the garage door opened the moment he turned into the driveway. She must have been waiting for him. He had told her a dozen times he didn't want to park in the garage, that he never stayed long, but she never listened. She insisted, so he humored her, pulling inside and cutting the engine. "You're here." His mother greeted him with the same warmth as always, her face lighting up as he stepped through the door. She pulled him into a tight embrace, pressing a kiss to his cheek. As always, every Tuesday, at noon. I just saw on the news about another kidnapping, she said as she led him toward the kitchen. I thought you might be there. I was, but now I'm here. He inhaled deeply, catching the scent of something rich and familiar, his stomach clenched in response. What's that amazing smell? Chicken soup, she announced proudly, gesturing toward the pot simmering on the stove. The scent of garlic, herbs, and slow, cooked broth filled the air, making his mouth water. He realized then just how long it had been since he'd eaten anything of substance. Perfect, he murmured, pulling out a chair at the small kitchen table. I was hoping you'd come, so I made your favorite. Good timing, he admitted. I've barely had time to eat these last few days. His mother tisked disapprovingly as she moved around the kitchen, ladling soup into bowls. I don't know why you don't come here more often instead of eating all that frozen supermarket junk. Who knows what they put in that stuff? Andrew chuckled, shaking his head. She had always been like this, distrusting anything pre-packaged or store-bought. She cooked everything from scratch, dismissing restaurants and takeout as poor substitutes for real food. Need any help? He asked, half rising from his seat. She spun around, waving him back down. God forbid! I can still do this, and you need to rest. Sit down. He knew better than to argue. If he insisted, she'd only get flustered and order him to sit like a child. So he relented, watching as she set the table. His mother was nearly 50, but looked much younger. She ran every morning, keeping pace with people half her age. Andrew had inherited the habit from her, their early jogs together turning into a lifelong routine. He had been fast enough that his gym teacher once suggested training him professionally. But his mother had shut that idea down, and he hadn't minded. Running was something he enjoyed, not something he wanted to turn into a job. Still, she never dyed her greying hair. When friends suggested it, she dismissed the idea with a wave of her hand. I'm getting older. Grey hair is part of it, and I have no reason to hide it. Why should I be ashamed of my age? Eventually they stopped asking. Did you hear me? She asked suddenly. Andrew blinked. What? Margaret told me that Lily is coming to town next week. He stiffened slightly. I didn't know. Strange. I talked to her yesterday and she didn't mention it. His mother hesitated. So you don't know? She placed a steaming bowl of soup in front of him before sitting across from him. Know what? He pressed. I'm not certain, but Margaret mentioned that Lily is seeing someone. A pause. A long one. And he's moving here for work. She's coming back with him. Andrew set down his spoon. His fingers tightened around it slightly before he forced himself to relax. She wouldn't move for something casual. His mother hesitated again. Margaret said that they're planning to get married in the fall. He stared at her, then picked up his spoon again. She never mentioned anything to me, he said finally, scooping up a spoonful of soup and taking a sip. I'm happy for her, and if she moves back, that means I can be closer to Carmen. His phone rang. Matthew. Where are you? His partner asked. At my mom's. Why? You need to come to the office. Now. Andrew straightened. Why? What happened? Just come as soon as you can. The line went dead. Andrew cursed under his breath, grabbing his jacket. I have to go. His mother sighed but didn't argue. Take care. As he stepped outside, the engine roared to life, drowning out her voice as he sped away.